Good. I'm just going to go ahead and start so we can really take advantage of the full 45 minutes and just allow people to arrive. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Anger as a Voice for Change. I'm Bianca Pointner. I'm a full-time staff member for the MK Gandhi Institute for Nonviolence, which is a local non-for-profit here in Rochester, New York. And I will be co-facilitating this session today together with my colleague Jonathon, who will introduce himself in a second as well. Yeah, thanks for signing up and spending the next 45 minutes with us, doing a quick exploration on anger. And yeah, so everyone, I think, has been conditioned to relate to the anger in very different ways. And what I'm learning is that anger is loaded with so much information and energy. Anger is one of the most basic human needs, basic human feelings rather, and there's no good in avoiding it. And so I think if we are acting out of our anger and think we have agency over how we respond to it, we might tell ourselves we're not going to get violent. However, I believe that if we can take care of the underlying feelings of anger, it can actually collapse into violence and it will have agency over us. And I really believe if we find ways to tap into the wisdom behind our anger and let it inform us, there's this wide space of exploration that can help us tap deeper into what's actually going on. And I really think that anger and grief especially are really, really tied together very, very intensely. So it's important to have a relationship to our anger, the shadow, the hurt, the rage, the woundedness, and also the ways we might be attached to power, I believe. Yeah, if we bypass these precious opportunities to enter into a transformative space, which would be tension or, for example, anxiety, sometimes even terror, then we might miss out on something. So here today, we have about now 40 minutes to tap into what starting a relationship with our anger could look like. And we're going to offer tools that help gain more awareness and helps to make the first steps towards moving into relationship with our anger. And that's how we start within ourselves. This short webinar is just like a shortened version of a webinar we offer through the Gandhi Institute, Anger is a Voice for Change. So we're trying to shorten it for today. Yeah, so with this, I think, Jonathon, I'm gonna go to pass it to you to introduce yourself and then we get ready for our activities. Does that sound all right?
Yes, that's cool. Thank you, Bianca. Welcome everybody to Anger as a Voice for Change. My name is Jonathon, and my relationship with anger started as a child. When I would get angry, I would start crying. And I was told, stop crying. And so that's my first experience with stopping my anger. And so then in my teenage years, when I would get angry, I would act out real destructively and do a lot of violent acts. I ended up in prison. And then in prison, I began to look at my anger. And one of the things I learned in prison was stimulus and response. And I learned that between stimulus and response is I have a choice. I could choose how I'm going to respond. Because I used to always believe that when I got angry, I would blame the other person. I would blame the situation. They made me do it. And my reaction was spontaneous. There was nothing I could do about it. But stimulus and response taught me that I have a choice. And so once I got released from prison, I began to continue to look at my anger and co-facilitate workshops like this to help me expand that gap between stimulus and response. And so it's no longer like seconds for me. I mean, it's still seconds, but it's not like nanoseconds. I believe that the more I learn about my anger, what pushes my buttons, what makes me react, and then I'm more capable of responding in a constructive way. And so with that, I turn it back over to you, Bianca, to take us through the first exercise.
Thank you, Jonathon. Yeah, what I would like us to do before Jonathon is going to introduce the anger continuum, I would like you to think about a situation recently where you felt angry, and think about it on a sliding scale from 1 to 10. Choose an intensity spectrum between 5 and 7. So with 1 being maybe a little bit irritated and 10 being full on angry or, in rage. Yeah, think about just a 5 to 7 situation for yourself. And if you can't think of something, that's okay. And before we start, just, taking a deep breath and just, allowing ourselves to arrive in our body. And really think about, how do you know that you're angry? And give yourself a second to really think about, how do you actually notice that you're angry? And how does anger actually feel in your body? Where does it show up? Where does it live in your body? And yeah, just sit with that maybe for just 10 seconds. Maybe if you can recall a situation from recent times. There's this, what Jonathon just mentioned, there's this stimulus and response, and there's this whole space in between, right? So when you have that stimulus, that initial trigger, what happens for you in those moments? For me, it's often in my throat and a little bit in my chest. I can feel this almost like a blockage, and either I don't speak at all, or the response would be like, oh, I have to have power over, and it's like my usual response if I'm not stopping myself from just taking a deep breath. So sit with that for a second and take that moment just with you as we go in the next couple of minutes or the next half an hour. And with that situation in mind and in your body, I'm gonna ask you, Jonathon, to introduce the anger continuum.
All right. So now with that in mind, the anger intensity continuum, what it does for me is it helps me become aware of my anger, how my anger intensifies, and the feelings beneath my anger. So when we think about stimulus and response, this exercise will also help us expand that gap between stimulus and then us responding. So the first thing, Bianca, could you put up the anger continuum word bank?
For sure. 1 second, I'm gonna share my screen. I hope everyone can see it. If not, please let me know in the chat or speak up. That's totally fine as well.
Okay. All right, so we have words like livid, enraged, outraged, furious, angry, displeased, disgruntled, indignant. This isn't a complete list, but all these words represent some form of anger. Maybe you experience them, maybe you use these words when somebody pushes your button. And so maybe there's other words. We have lines at the bottom where you could just add on words. Maybe you could put fear there, or hurt, or sadness, or pain, anything like that. So I mean, this isn't a complete list, but it's a word list to help us start thinking about when we're angry, when somebody pushes our button. And if I could put a feeling to it, what would that feeling be? Do I go from 1 to 60? Do I go right from do I go right to anger? Or am I frustrated? Or am I annoyed? Am I pissed off? Or am I resentful? You follow me so far? So this right here is the word bank to help us be able to identify and become aware of our anger. So could you go to the next slide for me, please? So this is my anger continuum. And this all came about one day. I was having a conversation with a co-facilitator of mine here at the Gandhi Institute, and I was telling them about an incident that happened to me. And so when I was done, I was like, yeah, I was pissed off. He was like, you was pissed off? I mean, based on the incident, it sounds like you was angry. I said, nah, I was really just pissed off, man. I mean, it wasn't up there yet. And he is like, oh, all right. So as we continue to discuss that, that's what brought us to the anger continuum, because I was like, yeah, I mean, when certain things happen to me, I don't immediately get angry. For example, if I'm driving my car down the street and somebody in front of me is going very slow and I'm trying to get to my destination, that doesn't necessarily provoke anger in me. I'm like irritated, like, oh man, I hope this person speeds up so I can get to my destination, but I'm not angry. And so, we was talking about situations like that, and it made me understand or become more aware of what gets me to anger and what situations just push my button immediately I'm angry. So at first, for me, it starts with being displeased about something, annoyed, and then maybe irritated, aggravated, and then I'm pissed off, then I'm frustrated, resentful, angry, furious, and then enraged. And usually for me, what intensifies my anger is the self-talk about whatever situation I'm in. I start talking to myself about it. So now let's go back to the car situation. If I'm driving my car, I'm trying to get to my destination, and somebody in front of me is driving slow to me. Maybe they're not driving slow. Maybe they're just driving the speed limit. But to me, they're driving slow. So I start telling myself, oh, man, come on, man. Speed up, man. What is you doing, man? Ain't nobody in front of you, man. What, you can't drive? What's wrong with you, man? Come on now. And so as I continue to self-talk myself about the situation, and then I begin to use colorful language, no longer am I annoyed or irritated. I start getting aggravated. And then that may turn into being pissed off, and then that may turn into be frustrated or resentful. My anger, I start building the feelings, start getting higher and higher. Now remember, the stimulus is somebody in front of me is driving slow. And that right there is that right there pushed my button. But then my anger begins to intensify because I'm using self-talk about this situation, all blaming the person that's in front of me, saying that I'm gonna be late to where I have to go, and it's this person right here's fault. So that right there is what the anger continuum is. You following me so far? Bianca, could you put the next one up there for me, please? Now this is a blank continuum. You see how the arrow goes up? So at the bottom of the arrow, go back to that word bank and think about some of those words right there. So now when going back to that word bank, at the very bottom, what word would you put there? And then take it all the way up to that feeling when you just know you at a point, maybe your top feeling of anger is outraged or enraged or livid or furious, whatever it may be, just start at the bottom with the least, and then you just keep on going up. So, I mean, take about, let me see, how many minutes should we give you? Take a couple of minutes right now to, first of all, look at that word bank and think about what I just asked you to do. And then just start writing down what your anger continuum will be. If you want, we could keep up this word bank right here to help you in the process. Any questions? Any questions, you could put them in the chat bar, or you could just speak them out right now. All right, it sounds like y'all have that, so please begin right now. All right. Bianca, could you take the word bank down, please?
Do you want me to stop screen share?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So how is everybody doing? All right. So now what we're going to do now is Bianca's going to put us in pairs. And then I would like us to talk about our continuum, how we came up with it, how it worked for us, one insight it gave us on our most recent angry situation, anything you want to talk about. And I'm going to give you, since you're going to be in pairs, what we're going to do is each person to have about like 3 minutes to talk. So, the first person share their and continuum, what they came up with, whatever they want to talk about. Take about 3 minutes to do that. And then save space for your partner to do the same. Any questions on that?
Jonathon, we are an uneven number, so I think I'm gonna put you in a breakout room. Is that okay with you?
Yes, no problem at all.
Okay, just a minute. Okay, we're all set. Sorry, Jonathon, how much time did you say that everyone has?
It's going to be a total of 6 minutes.
6 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna let everyone know when it's time. I'll give you like a 1-minute warning while you're in the room. Okay, I'm opening the rooms now. Hi, Aaron. Did you muted? Sorry. Did you just join us?
No, I went to my the breakout room, but there was no one there.
Oh no. Okay, let me see if someone is alone with you somewhere. Okay. Well, I'm sorry for that.
It's okay. I'm just
Seems like
a little irritated. I'm not fully angry.
that's good to know. Good that you're letting me know where you're at. Thank you for that. How do you feel about just sharing with me?
Yeah,
What that brings up for you, that continuum?
it was a great exercise.
Yeah.
I teach a lot in terms of conflict management. So I work in learning and development, and there's a model of it's a little pinch, right? So it's at the very bottom, then at the tip is a crunch. It's like where you kind of like I think about I turn into the Hulk, right? Unleash and you feel like you don't have control over yourself. You kind of look back and you kind of go, whoa, that was me. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
But I kind of started with the little pinch, the annoyance, then getting irritated. Irritated to me is a bit more chronic, like an annoyance. It kind of like gets you and you're like, oh, I'm over it. But there's that, sometimes you get irritated. It's like a mood. It's more of a mood. So the emotion has now become more systemic in the body, pervasive. And then I start getting resentful, right? Because I don't want to be this way.
Yeah, and I bet it's very easy to get stuck in these spaces, right?
Yeah, it's very easy to feel stuck. And so then I internalize the anger towards me, and then I also project it out at people around me. So it's all of a sudden, I call it splitting. I don't know if I used to be a psychotherapist, and we would often talk about when what happens when a client splits, right? So all that I love now I hate, right? How did that happen? I went from all loving to all hating, and then the sense of being furious, exasperated, outraged, and as I was kind of thinking this through, I was thinking of a recent scenario at work where I'm working with one of my team members. So I'm ahead of the whole team in terms of leadership, my position, and in the space that we were facilitating, I was leading the facilitation. She reacted to me emotionally. I felt betrayed.
Oh,
Interesting. Kind of like, whoa, we're holding the space. And then I had to kind of, so I immediately noticed that what happens for me is my eyes, my jaw gets locked down, and then the tension here. So if I'm not careful, like my first reaction, like if you were to irritate me or get me to a place, Bianca, I might, if I don't regulate, I might kind of go.
Yeah, and I wonder what the story, because I like what Jonathon mentioned about the story he tells himself in these moments, right? Like oops, sorry, this is the timer. Yeah, the stories we tell ourselves, oh, how dare you not trust me while I give, and don't you see my intent, and all these things that we start telling ourselves that is just,
how could you do this to me?
Yeah. And I love what you just shared about splitting. How can I hate something or like feel a sense of hate or anger towards something that I loved? And I'm noticing as you say that so much pain is what it splits sometimes, right? And grief. And I have to real quick, I'm so sorry.
Sure.
I'm going to tell them. I would have liked to give them a warning. I loved what you just shared. So it kind of totally
it's hard to multitask.
So I'm going to close now. Okay, great. They have 60 seconds to leave the breakout room. So they have choice. Perfect. Thank you, Erin, for sharing that.
Yeah, there's, are people coming back? Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I know we could talk about this stuff for hours and days and weeks, and we're just tapping into it a little bit.
Yeah, it's so healthy. I do visual art imagery as well, and when recent events have been happening, I noticed that my art started becoming angry, but there was lightness, there was power in the anger, and how to transform. You had mentioned energy. Thing I really connected when you said, anger produces so much energy, and it's like, how do you manage that so that you could really use and leverage that energy?
Yeah, how, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to explore every time we do those webinars.
It just put in a box and on it.
So welcome back. We back in the big group. Anybody any thoughts on anything you want to share about the anger continuum? Feel free to do that right now.
It was a great exercise, Jonathon. Yeah, I mean, I've seen models like this, but they're kind of given to you, right? It's like, here's the spectrum of anger. But to actually build it for myself was very activating in terms of understanding me personally, and that my anger tends to stem from the narrative of betrayal. So when there's things happening that I feel are not going in my direction, I tend to then start to see I feel distrust and betrayal in other people.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to share anything?
Well, my
All
partner
right.
and I in session 3, were just, we were both older women, and we were talking about how we're socialized to anger and allowed to feel certain or express certain types of anger, which might maybe turn the anger inside if you can't express it. And
Mm.
I was hoping there'd be some discussion how that affects particularly people of color who are also socially allowed to express certain anger in certain context.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, I believe that that's an excellent point. And as Bianca said at the beginning, since we only have like 45 minutes, this is more like an intro. So as we sat down and me and Bianca to discuss what we should talk about in these 45 minutes, what we're presenting you with was what we decided. But yeah, we do go in that a lot more, in our 90-minute workshop. Well, webinar. It used to be in person, but this is the COVID-19 Zoom approach that we're doing now. But that is an excellent point that we definitely talk about that in our webinars.
Thanks for bringing it up. It's important to acknowledge.
I think the idea of betrayal is very significant, because that then connects for me with pain and hurt, because I think that just gets at a very central part of who we are. If we feel betrayed, if we feel that we're threatened or harmed, there's a lot of sadness that goes along with it. At some point that can convert into outward expressions of rage, but I think underneath it is we've been hurt, as the person we think we are has been hurt, and in whatever way we defend ourselves, we try to do that. For some people it may be outward violence, and for other people it may, as Lisa said, a feeling of protecting ourselves and defending ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you for your feedback, and hope you got something when you was in your peers from the Anger Continuum. I'm gonna pass it on to Bianca to take us through the last exercise of this 45-minute session.
Thanks, Jonathon. Yeah, so what we're gonna do next is something that I have just tapped into recently, and I made a graphic that is very new, so I'm gonna try this out and very happy to hear feedback. This comes from the framework of nonviolent communication. If you're familiar or not, very shortly, it's basically a framework that believes that all humans have the same set of universal needs and feelings. And all actions that we do are a means to fulfill a certain need. And I think in terms of anger, I'm going to share my screen real quick. It's important to maybe, or it's a sense of curiosity from my end to just have a little needs awareness activity around anger. And so you can see on the left and right, like there's a spectrum, and in the middle is the neutral position. And to the left and right are certain sets of needs. So on the left, for example, is autonomy, the need for independence, freedom, choice. And to the right, you can see connection, cooperation, communication, and so on, empathy, dignity. And then we have results, productivity, speed. On the other hand, process, discovery, thoroughness. And the last is honesty, growth, self-expression. And on the opposite side is harmony, peace, and ease. And I've created this kind of spectrum So if you see those kind of bluish purple kind of slides, I'm going to ask you some questions, which would be questions around like situations where we get stimulated, triggered. And it's just an example. And I've used this sheet lately for myself to figure out in certain situations that made me angry. And especially during the days of like right now, what's going on here locally in Rochester and the country, the world. There are so many situations that trigger me. And I wanted to just see, okay, when I'm triggered, what do I actually need in this moment to understand where I'm at, and might figure out guess what someone else might need, and is that why there's maybe like a friction. So yeah, so I'm gonna leave this open, and we gotta do 3 questions. And the first question starts at top, where autonomy is to the left and connection is to the right. And you can do mentally, you can try to shift in what direction you would go in this kind of scenario. So for example, the first, if someone close to you, your partner or your family member or a friend, notices that you're angry and they tell you, just don't get angry. Why are you getting angry? This is not a big deal. And I, for one, have heard that a lot. I don't know how you feel about that. So in these moments, in this specific moment, would you lean towards autonomy? Like, okay, I want to actually put myself a little bit aside, isolate myself, I need privacy and just process? Or would you rather, do you lean towards connection? You would like to have empathy right away for how you feel about how that landed in you. So just think about where you would be in this slide. There's no extreme left or right. We can be in the middle, and sometimes we need both. The next question is around, so for example, if you have a coworker, you're in a meeting, and you're speaking and your coworker interrupts you and they say, hey, we really don't have time for this. We really don't have time for what you just bring up. Let's move on. Would you in those moments lean towards, okay, yeah, we have to get going. Productivity counts here. Let's keep moving. Or would you rather get into the process of discovery and see, okay, actually something is happening with me when she said that. Do I bring it up? Do I want to actually invest time to figure this out right now before it gets bigger and bigger and I kind of get resentful? So where do you in social connection or interrelational, I'm mixing up the words, between in your relationships, where would you lean towards? And the third one is, someone comes up to you and says, hey, are you willing to receive some feedback, some criticism about something that you really care about actually initially, and someone has actually negative feedback, and that brings me to that whole betrayal thing, right? And I wonder with betrayal, what need would be unfulfilled with betrayal, trust, connection, to be seen, to be known. So yeah, if someone would tell you I have negative feedback, would you rather go towards peace and ease and say, well, yeah, I'm actually pretty angry, but for the sake of ease and peace and comfort and safety, I'm just gonna let them tell me? Or would you rather go towards honesty and growth and say, actually, I'm not really willing to receive that yet. No, maybe another time. And these are just examples of, maybe that would be a tool that would be helpful to, like, in situations where you're angry, to see, okay, where do I actually lean towards? So I'm gonna stop the screen share real quick. And yeah, I'm curious to hear what initial reaction you have. Maybe we can hear from one person before we do a closing. And as I said, this is just Oh, I'm just saying it would be really nice to get the needs awareness spectrum in the chat. Yeah. I will, at the end of the webinar, actually share with you ways to connect with us and to have access to our materials if you're interested, and or if you're interested to hear more about our work. So yeah, wonder if anybody has an initial feedback to this exercise. If not, that's okay as well.
I think for me, I'm still processing the model.
Yeah.
So the autonomy and connection. I think I was kind of thinking about. I don't know. I work in healthcare, and so this is probably not. I don't know if this will fit, but I think about, and my husband's a nurse, and so I get firsthand what it's like to be a registered nurse or on the front line, and more and more it feels this loss of autonomy. That there's so many regulations and so many policies, and that and with COVID, of course, being able to adapt and shift to different units and patient populations, and kind of this. So they're very connected with people. I need to empathize, but they're losing this sense of autonomy, and then the anger is coming out, right? And the resentment and the vices, of overeating or whatever it may be, not taking care of the self. So I wasn't sure if that kind of fit in here, but it was an awakening for me to understand why such a helping profession, you may find a lot of anger.
Yeah, and even if there's especially systemic issues, right, where we don't always feel like we have a sense of choice to even express our need for autonomy or express our need for dignity or respect, because there's a sense of feeling unheard. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I just got, I'm just realizing we have 5 minutes left. Thank you so much for holding in there with us. This is just an exploration. I'm so welcoming any kind of feedback. It helps us for our own individual growth for sure, and as an institution. With this specific exercise, I just talked to the director of the institute earlier on before this, and Kit Miller, and she said that this actually is very helpful to understand maybe our own patterns, like where do I lean to? So in the beginning, I talked a little bit about how we are all differently conditioned to approach our own anger, conflict. And out of these conditionings, from a systems lens, develop patterns, and those patterns inform our actions. So yeah, thank you so much. Jonathon, would you be willing to ask the closing question? And while Jonathon is doing that, I'm just gonna go ahead and type in the chat ways to be and stay connected to us if you're interested. Thank you.
All right, I'm unmuted. So the closing question is, what could it look like if you use anger as a voice for change? And for me, so I was in prison. I was in prison years ago, and it was a riot. The COs had beat up this prisoner. So the word went around that, listen, we ain't gonna go for this no more, man. We gonna protest. Man, they've been beating us up for too long. We're not going for this no more. The guy didn't do anything. So what we decided to do was set the cell block on fire. Now, granted, we're locked in cells. Of course, the cells is metal, but we still locked in cells, and we got all this toilet paper, pillows, shirts thrown out in the middle of the gallery, and it's burning. Smoke everywhere. And the smoke had got so intense that I had to run to my window and open up my window. And I thought about that years later, because I was like, what were we trying to do? And I think what we wanted to do is we wanted to be heard. We wanted to be understood, and we wanted the COs, the correctional officers, to stop beating us up for nothing. But I mean, the method that we chose to do that was, well, let's start a fire. And, you know, looking back at it, I said, man, I mean, there's there's like thousands of ways we could have responded to that situation. I mean, it's all we wanted to really do was just be heard and just be understood, just be listened to. I mean, and we never got that opportunity because it was look like, you know what, y'all riding, set the gallery on fire. Some of us that got tier 3 tickets, and that's like the worst ticket you could get in jail, got put in the box because they said that they were the ring leaders. So anger as a voice for change. That's what I think about when I think about anger as a voice for change. So that's what I want to leave you. That's what I want to leave you guys with, is that anger as a voice for change. How would that look in your life? And during our longer workshops, we actually give everybody the opportunity to reflect on that and to talk about anger and how they could begin to use their anger as a voice for change. So with that, I'm gonna turn it back over to Bianca to just talk about the newsletter and just close us out.
Yeah, I just want to let you know, I put in the chat ways to sign up for a virtual mailing list where we just share newsletters and updates and on our events. We have a lot coming up for our fall offerings. You could learn more about our virtual open house to learn more about what we do here in Rochester and beyond. And yeah, and I put in my email address if you have any other questions, and the Gandhi Institute websites to just, you know, do your own research if you want. Yeah, thank you so much everyone for joining. I think we are exactly on time, which makes me very happy. And yeah, thank you so much for joining and hanging in there. I know it has been already probably a long day. And Zoom is just having all sorts of effects on us. And yeah, stay gentle to yourself. And thanks for exploring anger with us.
Yes, thank you all for coming.
Bye.
Sharing with us. All right.